May's place is situated in the downtown east side of Vancouver on Powell Street, which is actually probably the poorest area sociologically in the whole of Canada.
And it's the best place to be if you're dying, believe me.
Very first patient is probably one thing one never forgets.
His name was Ernesto. He lived in one of the SROs in the neighborhood.
we rushed down to bring him in and to welcome him, and he was so sort of overwhelmed, I think, with all the attention that he was getting.
He had a terrible head and neck cancer. Couldn't manage at home any longer.
And he's got this dressing that's falling off his face, off his head, and he's all grubby, and he's in this absolute surroundings of absolute cleanliness and prettiness, actually.
And so a guy that had no family and had lived in a SRO for years was just surrounded by love and attention, and in a place that was way more beautiful than anything he'd been living in.
And he's saying, "Oh," he said, "This is," and he was saying, "It was like it's too much." He said, "I don't have any money," and he's saying, "No, you don't have to worry." And we talked for a bit and gave him a snack and whatever, and then after a while we showed him where his room was, and we have a jacuzzi, and so he had his first jacuzzi of his life, and I think he was very excited about that. We were excited to be using the jacuzzi for the first time. Anyway, after he came out of that, and his nails had been cut and his hair had been trimmed and everything, he had a real kind of dressing had been changed. He was a new man, and he had a little bit to eat, and he was going to bed. He said he was going to bed. He was tired. He'd had his medications, and he went to bed. And he never woke up. He died in the night.
And died in a comfortable, beautiful way, really.
He was at peace, and in that new, maybe overwhelming, happy state, he was able to die peacefully.
My name is Dr. Tom Watterson, and I worked at May's Place from its inception till I retired 2 years ago, I think.
Dr. Jay Slater. I'm one of the hospice physicians in the Bloom group. I work here at May's and also at Cottage Hospice.
Dr. Susan Burgess. I'm a home hospice and palliative care consultant, as well as a street doctor and a family physician. I've worked in the Downtown Eastside in Vancouver since 1993.
The home care workers had been pressing Mrs. Guttridge, who was running the Bloom group at that time, to have a hospice because people were dying in their rooming houses, and it was very difficult for these home care workers to see that. So with the new building at 333 Powell, they put in this 6-bed unit, and part of the component was that we would take some of the home care workers would be the base for the care, with me as being the RN at that time.
Well, it was the first hospice of any sort in the city. I think it was dovetailing with with a growing hospice movement across the country and around the world to have places outside the hospital where people could die with dignity and symptom control.
Patients in palliative care frequently come from home or are admitted to palliative care, have their symptoms managed, and are discharged home. Hospice is not that. It's a home where people go for end-stage management.
Once you're hospice care, you are an expectation of life of weeks to months rather than years.
We had some rotation of weekend coverage, evening and weekend coverage, such that Tom didn't have to do it all the time, including Dr. Burgess and myself. Dr. Matte was involved early on.
I wondered where people were when they were sick and dying, because they weren't coming to the clinic and they were going to emerge, and that didn't make sense.
Tylene Katz was here. She would go out and go to all the palliative care units and find patients there. She's a dynamic little woman too.
It's established in the heart of the Downtown Eastside through an organization that was well known in the Downtown Eastside for the peoples and highly respected because they had so many programs.
It kind of started with the HIV epidemic in the Downtown Eastside.
It's just what was happening at that time in Vancouver, the AIDS crisis, HIV AIDS, the ongoing mental health issues, substance abuse, different than now, but always prevalent, alcohol, drugs, different drugs in those days. So the motivation was to provide a place outside of hospital where people that couldn't be managed at home could get appropriate care, loving care.
Maze developed very rapidly during the AIDS crisis, and so we turned that first year, we had 6 beds and we turned away 90 patients. And because it was a low-key model, it was actually operating at about a third the cost, if not less, than the cost of a hospital bed. So it not only allowed for better utilization of beds, but it allowed for the individuals to come, not all from the Downtown Eastside, but a majority were, because they were, maybe multi-diagnosed and mental health problems, addictions, and then get AIDS on top of that.
In the early days of HIV and AIDS, it was another stigma. So people in the Downtown Eastside had stigma of mental health and poverty and homelessness and their addictions, and then they had yet another stigma. They were HIV positive, and how do people live with that, right? They're shunned from the rest of mainstream society in so many ways.
I'm Franco Ferrari. I'm on the board of the Bloom Group, and this is my second time around being on the board. I'm very committed to the organization and pleased to be involved. It was very much a happening place, if a hospice can be a happening place. Tylene was attracting lots of attention,
Energy, time,
celebrities and various individuals who normally wouldn't be drawn to something like this.
The individuals, we had one man, Jim, and he had AIDS as well, and he got great comfort from sitting by the fireplace. So when we were starting to fundraise, he decided he was going to fundraise for another fireplace. And he got his box and everything, and went around collecting if anybody came in, rattling the box. Anyway, it was really neat because we got Elizabeth Taylor came to visit our hospice, and she was talking to Jim, and he said, "I'm fundraising for the new hospice, a fireplace." And she said, "Oh, Jim, that's a lovely idea. Well, what's a fireplace cost?" And he said, "Well, Tylene says about 5,000. And she says, "Jim, I'm going to give you the 5,000. I said, "Oh," it was absolutely what? Anyway, so. And then he said, "Well, we come and look at the pictures of what we're going to be doing." And it was this derelict building, and she goes, "Oh my goodness!" And she said, "Well, what sort of money are you looking at?" At that time, we thought it was going to be about 3,000. Ended up being a bit more, and she said, "I'm going to give you 75,000." So Jim, grin was out to here.
Well, Elizabeth Taylor was probably the most well-known individual who ended up making for us then was certainly a major donation for the fireplace that was in Maze Place. So it was a great spot. Made a real living room setting, which was part of that family orientation that we wanted to establish here. So Tylene was quite excited about that.
hospice has been, for many individuals, and I'll quote, heaven. But not the end of life heaven, but heaven in terms of, this is a great place. So different from where they were coming from. So much kindness, so much dignity, and decent symptom management.
There were people that came to Mays with HIV and AIDS at an advanced stage, expected, to pass in short order. And sometimes, the love and attention, the TLC, 3 square meals a day. We had many cases where people looked like they were, within hours or days of the end of their life, and they would rally and they would take on, they'd get quality of life, they'd, take on other projects. I'm still looking after a guy who went on antiretrovirals while he was at Mays, and he's still alive, like 20 years later. He was here to die, and had expected to, and something about the love and compassion here.
Time is short, and it's amazing how quickly the bonding between residents themselves. We've even had residents that would sit with other residents when they were dying. We desperately needed more beds. Well, the first year I turned away 90 patients that could have died in our place, and much more affordable to die in a hospice than in a hospital bed. So started looking out for a second place, and Floyd said, I'm going to paint you a picture that you can use as for your brochures and things for Mays Place, for a new place. And a couple of days later, he comes out of his room, and he's actually, the painting is, this is what we did use for our thing. The beauty of this is like the foreground is leading to the heart and infinity, and Floyd's expression of that was that the loving and loving hearts go on through infinity. So that was his take on what he got from hospice, and that was lovely. So we used it for all our fundraising material.
It's always been on the edge of financial difficulties, and it's always pulled through. We had a nurse's aide collect pennies, and collected, I can't remember how many thousands of dollars of pennies. It was incredible.
The ethos that exists in Mays Place, I don't want to see it have to be changed significantly. Funding a hospice, because it's a medical facility, we get some of that operational support from Vancouver Coastal Health, but it doesn't fulfill all the requirements of the facility. So if we're trying to help a family go through the dying process with the individual within their family or the friend that they have that's in this facility, we don't have enough, we don't get support to provide those kind of services, so we have to fundraise for it. And so I continue to support those kind of things, because those are additional services that help the individuals either that are in the process of dying, or the family and friends that are here to comfort them through that and join them in that journey.
Well, the early years of my life were all painful, up to now, always painful. I was living like every other junkie around here. So they told me, Joseph, we thought about it, the team, and we believe that we should call an ambulance for you to go to the St. Paul's. It's important. I accepted without a word of grumble or anything like that. Even though there is no junkie that likes to be locked up anywhere. But I listen. I listen when it's time to listen.
It was a shock to all of us, because I know he had been losing weight the last few months.
Well, I thought, I was under the impression that I was in pain because of but it wasn't that. Once I got to the hospital and they checked my arm, they took blood tests that I hadn't taken in 10 years, blood test I haven't taken in 10 years. I'm here for an arm thing. And now you're telling me I got a cancer of the lungs. And that's how it happened.
The diagnosis was cancer, and it had metastasized, and they were trying to investigate a bit and see if there was something they could do. And as it turns out, there wasn't much to do, and he didn't want to do any extraordinary treatment either. So the minute I heard about it, then I was making plans to come here. And then 2 days later, he was moved here to May's place.
I loved it, and I still do, because I feel safe. I'm well fed, something that I haven't eaten in about a year. I have lost, like 35, 40 pounds. But I feel I've gained about 10 back in about a week. So I'm happy.
That my brother's happy here. That's been my favorite part. That he's truly, truly happy. He says it over and over how happy he is. To me, which is mind-boggling in a way, because you just find out 3 weeks ago you have metastasized cancer, and you're saying how happy you are. And I think it's because he's so well taken care of here.
I'm getting good treatment. The doctors are good. They're maintaining my pain, which was my goal, to maintain the pain, not take pain, but just to maintain the pain. He's been doing that. And the staff is very good, and the food is very good.
That's a huge difference when you're spending whatever time you have left and feeling like you're in a home.
They're all of them from the heart. All of them.
It's like when they come inside and have a breakfast. And it's an incredible breakfast. And the first breakfast I had, French toast, it was just so perfect. A place to heal. I find it as a really incredible facility that's gonna basically take care of me. You can't deny the healing, and it's so profound to know that Maze is playing a role in my attitude. The staff here are really, really quality people, and nurses are all leaders, and that's what I feel is a leadership thing here. You can just feel it in the air. So I almost feel like, oh my God, do I really deserve this? And Maze doesn't make me feel like I'm guilty for being taken care of, Being in this location makes it more effective, because the suffering down here, it's right in the right spot. And I don't know of any other place like Maze that can put a person in the right emotional space let the heal continue. Anybody who would be connected with Maze would be transformed.
Everybody just tells me, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. I don't get told that too much here.
That's pretty cool. Like, I can see the difference in them, yeah. It's a lot more, it's not so sterile, like a hospital sort of thing, It's just, I don't know, it's friendly, especially now after the elder today. I know it's gonna change the way my brother's feeling. He's gonna feel a lot more welcome here.
I find I get great help here. Many of the people standing around are here to help me. I feel the help.
For me, it's making a huge difference. I'm able to actually see my brother out of this world with less stress than it would be if this place didn't exist. So thank God for this place. Yeah, thank Mrs. Gutteridge for starting it. Yeah.
First, I'm going to say thank you. My ancestral names, Quilum, born Couch and raised in Malahide. And our gifts from the Creator and gifts from our people is prayer, taking care of one another. And I've been very fortunate to be asked to have prayer for people. May's place, been there for a few years. praying for people that are sick, praying for the people that are ready to venture to the next world. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're healing physically, but their mind is at ease, their breathing is relaxed, their emotion is free, and the burden of heaviness in their emotion is pushed aside because they welcome that, open the door of the mind, feel the goodness in the mind, feel the goodness in the emotion, and love themselves. And there's a healing in their heart, a bit of healing in their heart. Young lady, she really, really had bitterness in her heart. She was abused and hurt, so she walked the street. In her last days here, she really opened her mind, she opened her heart. She opened her mind, she opened her heart, she opened her awareness, and she said, I never loved myself. When that tears come down, it was anger, frustration, and anything and everything that weighed heavy in her emotion. And then when she resurrected her awareness, she never loved herself, but she said, now I love myself. But she wrote a letter and said, thank the Creator, thank the nurse, thank the doctor, thank May's Place. Otherwise I would have been dead on the street, and I would not be saved spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I thank everybody that's involved, that's taking care of that spirit, because sometimes you take a burden of the people who die alone, and then sometimes we don't thank the people, frontline workers, the caretakers enough. But I say thank you from the bottom of my heart for what each and every one of you do, and a blessing to each and every one that you have a good relationship with the spirit, good relationship with the patient, and most of all, good relationship with the healing.
My name is Natalie King, and I'm a peer support worker for Coast Mental Health. That's where I met my friend Ray. Got to meet Ray at a time in his life when he had just got diagnosed with cancer. And so I don't know if it was the news, but instantly we connected. And through Ray, I met May's Place. It's a beautiful place, you know. One of the bonus things was, you know, he wanted smoking facilities, which they provide, you know, with no judgment. And I think that was one of the things that Ray really wanted, was to know that he was going to be accepted for who he was on his terms and not want anybody to change him. The same thing that happens to most people down here, which is dying alone in some scuzzy little room, not being found for days. One of the beauties that I see here, you know, that yes, it might be the end of life, but life still goes on, you know, and connections still happen. I've witnessed a lot of things here, and it's been really beautiful to see. I've witnessed other families, you know, have to, you know, walk this process, you know, and a lot of them have been Indigenous, and May's Place has provided them to do their ceremonies and their songs. Family. I mean, that's the biggest word that stands out for me. You know, May's Place becomes a family for a lot of people that don't have their own families. And I know that Ray thanks everybody that is part of May's Place, that has made May's Place happen. Magic happens here.
Caregivers here are obviously the nurses. They are the experts and just provide amazing care.
Doctors have a role here, but it's really the staff that are here 24/7. They're dedicated. Many of them have been on staff for years, dozens of years, dealing with a population that is not easy in some regards, but it's just so satisfying in others. It's the compassion that people show that's, and continue to show consistently, that's so refreshing and surprising.
A good life deserves a good death. Even if it wasn't a particularly good life, a good death is still, everyone deserves that.
The staff become your family. We're looking after very sick people, and they become part of a family, of a group of patients and staff all become a family. Yeah.
This is a place that people can come and go, they can get to know. We've thought about having kind of lunches, and the people with life-threatening illnesses, come and do things here, not necessarily live here. With the right resources, I think Maze would be more embedded and more familiar currently to the community. It was in the past, but I think there's work to be done.
It's a happy place. Sad when somebody dies, but basically it's a happy. People laugh. They do all sorts of silly things. I just wish that more people out in the big world there understood how the end of life, even if you don't have next of kin, can still end up by being family in a caring surrounding.
Her legacy is that this organization continues to provide as much comfort and service to this community, which is where she started it, as it did in those days when she first began it. It's pretty amazing.